At 65 years old, I stood froze at the kitchen sink when I heard my son tell his wife, "Use my mom's card. She's got $700,000 just sitting there." In that single moment, 18 years of living under their roof suddenly made sense. I hadn't been living in a home. I'd been existing in a beautiful prison. What I did in the next 48 hours sent shockwaves through my entire family and transformed my life in ways I never imagined possible. But before I continue, please make sure you subscribe to Elderly Stories and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. We absolutely love knowing how far our stories reach across the world. I was standing at the kitchen sink, peeling potatoes for dinner, when the words cut through the thin walls separating the kitchen from the living room. My son Mark's voice carried clearly, and each syllable felt like a blade slicing through the air. "Honey, just use my mom's card. She's got about $700,000 sitting in her account doing nothing." My fingers went rigid around the potato I was holding. The peeling knife slipped from my grasp and clattered into the stainless steel sink with a sound that seemed to echo endlessly through the kitchen. My heart began hammering against my ribcage so violently that I thought it might burst right through my chest. 65 years of life. 4 to 5 years of back-breaking work as a seamstress, a house cleaner, a cook. Every single dollar of that $700,000 had a story attached to it. That money represented blood, sweat, countless sleepless nights, chronic back pain, hands so swollen I could barely close them, and now my son was casually offering it up as if it belonged to him. "Are you absolutely sure? Won't you be upset?" Patricia's voice, my daughter-in-law, carried that artificially sweet tone I'd come to recognize all too well after 18 years of living under the same roof. "Mom won't say a word. She lives here completely free, eats our food, uses our electricity, our water. It's the absolute least she can do to help out when we need it. Besides, she's old now. What does someone her age need with all that money saved up?" Each word landed like a hammer blow directly to my chest. Old. Free. The least she can do. As if I were nothing more than dead weight, an unwanted obligation, a burden they'd taken on purely out of the goodness of their hearts. I pressed my trembling hands against the cold edge of the sink to steady myself. My vision blurred at the edges, but I refused to let the tears fall. Not yet. I'd already shed far too many tears in this house over the past 18 years. Ever since Mark had convinced me to sell my modest 2-bedroom apartment to help with a down payment on this house, where they now treated me like an invisible stranger. Wow, $700,000. That's more than enough to completely remodel this entire kitchen and replace all the living room furniture too, Patricia said, her voice brimming with barely contained excitement that made my stomach turn. "Exactly. You deserve a brand new kitchen. Honey, and I've been wanting to replace that old couch forever. I've always dreamed of having one of those real Italian leather sectionals." They continued talking, cheerfully planning how they'd spend my hard-earned money, laughing together, dreaming out loud about renovations and expensive furniture. And there I stood, just feet away in the kitchen, peeling potatoes for their dinner, completely invisible, utterly insignificant, reduced to nothing more than a bank account with a pulse. I took a slow, deep breath. I carefully wiped my wet hands on my worn apron and walked quietly to the kitchen doorway. I stood there silently, watching them both lounging on the couch. Mark had his phone in his hand, probably already researching furniture prices online. Patricia was leaning against him intimately, smiling and pointing at his screen with enthusiasm. My son, my only child, the boy I'd raised completely alone after his father walked out on us when he was barely 3 years old. The boy I'd worked 3 different jobs for simultaneously just to send him to a decent school. The boy who graduated as a civil engineer because I'd stayed up sewing clothes until 4 in the morning for years to pay his private university tuition. Now that boy had grown into a 40-year-old man who had just called me old and useless. I turned and walked back into the kitchen before they could notice me standing there. I finished peeling the potatoes mechanically, moving on autopilot. I put them on the stove to boil. I prepared the rice, seasoned the beans, marinated the chicken. All of it done automatically while my mind churned and boiled with thoughts far more turbulent than anything on the stovetop. 18 years. 18 long years living in this house, relegated to the smallest bedroom, one where a twin bed and a narrow wardrobe could barely fit without touching. 18 years of cooking every meal, cleaning every surface, washing every piece of clothing, ironing every shirt. 18 years of handing over my entire monthly pension check of $1,200 without ever questioning it. Mark always said it was to help with household expenses, but I knew perfectly well that he earned excellent money as an engineer. Patricia also worked at one of those upscale boutiques downtown. 18 years of feeling like an unwelcome intruder in the very house I'd helped purchase. Because yes, when I sold my apartment and gave Mark $200,000 in cash, he'd made it sound like a temporary loan. I'll pay you back within 2 years, Mom, as soon as I get my promotion. That was 18 years ago. The promotion came right on schedule. The money never came back. And whenever I dared to bring up the subject, Mark would become irritated and defensive. Mom, you live here, don't you? That's worth way more than $200,000. Stop being so cheap about money. Cheap? Me? The woman who had given every last cent she had to ensure the son had a better life? I was the one being cheap? Lunch was finally ready. I set everything out on the dining table exactly as I did every single day. Mark and Patricia came to sit down without so much as a word of acknowledgement. It was routine. I was the invisible maid who simply appeared with food. Mom, this meat is kind of tough, Mark commented, chewing with obvious disapproval. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Next time I'll marinate it longer to make it more tender. Patricia rolled her eyes. Discreetly, she thought, but not discreetly enough. I saw it. I always saw it, even when they thought I didn't. I ate in complete silence, every bite feeling heavy and difficult to swallow. My mind was working furiously, processing 1,000 thoughts per second. I had to do something. I couldn't continue living like this. I absolutely could not let them use my money as if it were their personal piggy bank. After lunch, I washed all the dishes while they retreated back to the living room. I could hear Patricia saying she planned to go to the mall later that afternoon. My heart rate immediately accelerated. She was actually going to use my card. They were really, truly going to go through with this. I locked myself in my tiny bedroom. I sat on the edge of my narrow bed and picked up my cell phone with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. I dialed the bank's customer service number, the one I'd memorized so many years ago when I'd first opened this account. National Bank. Good afternoon. This is Jennifer speaking. How may I help you today? Good afternoon. I need to block my credit card immediately. My voice came out surprisingly firm, much stronger than I'd expected. Of course. May I please have your full legal name and account identification number? I provided all my personal details. I answered every security question they asked. I confirmed my date of birth, my mother's maiden name, my address. Every second felt like an absolute eternity. Understood, Mrs. Helen Roberts. Has there been a problem with your card? Was it lost or stolen? Let's just say that someone is attempting to use it without my authorization. I understand completely. I'm blocking it right now in our system. As of this exact moment, no transactions can be processed on this card number. Would you like to request a replacement card? Yes, but please don't mail it to this address. I'll come pick it up in person at the branch sometime next week. That's absolutely no problem at all. Your card has been successfully blocked as of 2:17 p.m. Is there anything else I can assist you with today? No, thank you so much for your help. I ended the call and pressed the phone against my chest. My heart was still racing wildly, but there was something new mixed in with the fear. Relief? Empowerment? I couldn't quite name the emotion, but for the first time in many years, I had made a decision that was entirely mine and mine alone. I sat there on my bed for almost an hour, just breathing deeply, thinking through everything, processing what I'd just done. I could hear Patricia getting ready to leave, her high heels clicking sharply on the hardwood floors, the rustling of her designer purse, the jingling of the car keys. Bye, honey. I'm heading to the mall to pick up a few things. Your mom was sweet enough to lend me her card, she called out cheerfully toward Mark. Lend? What an absolutely fascinating word choice to describe outright theft. Great. Have fun. Babe, Mark called back without a care in the world. The front door slammed shut. The car engine started outside. The sound gradually faded as she drove down the street. And I simply sat there on my twin bed in my closet-sized room, waiting. It didn't take long at all. Less than an hour later, my cell phone started ringing. It was Mark calling. I didn't answer the first call. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. He called again immediately, then again, and again. On the fifth consecutive call, I finally answered. "Mom, where are you right now?" His voice sounded agitated, definitely nervous. "I'm in my room." "Son, why? What's wrong?" "Patricia just called me from the mall. She says your card keeps getting declined. Did you block it?" Silence. A long, heavy silence stretched between us across the phone line. I could hear his breathing on the other end, impatient, waiting for an explanation. "Yes, I blocked it," I finally replied, with a calmness that genuinely surprised me. "What do you mean you blocked it? Why on earth would you do something like that?" "Because it's my card, Mark. My money. And I absolutely did not authorize anyone to use it." "Mom, please don't start with this drama right now." Patricia is standing at the register completely humiliated. She's already selected a bunch of expensive items. The saleswoman is just standing there waiting awkwardly. Do you have any idea how absolutely ridiculous this is? I have a very clear idea that you two attempted to spend my money without even asking me. That's what's truly ridiculous here. Stop being so dramatic about everything. It was just going to be a few things for the house. The house where you also happen to live, in case you've conveniently forgotten that fact. I took another deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I absolutely was not going to scream. I was not going to lose my composure, no matter what he said. "Mark, I heard you talking this morning. I heard every single word. I heard you say that I live here completely free. I heard you say I'm old and don't need all that money. I heard you both planning to spend $700,000 as if it were already yours." Silence on the other end. But this was a different kind of silence. This was the silence of someone who'd been caught red-handed doing something they knew was wrong. "Mom, it wasn't exactly like that." "It was exactly like that, son, word for word. And no, I'm absolutely not unblocking that card. Tell Patricia to come home right now. The three of us need to have a very serious conversation." I hung up before he could formulate a response. My hands were still shaking, but a new kind of strength was growing inside me, a strength I hadn't even known I still possessed. Half an hour later, I heard Patricia's car pull aggressively into the driveway. The front door flew open with such force that it slammed into the wall behind it. Her high heels echoed furiously on the floor like gunshots. "Where is your mother?" Her voice was absolutely dripping with venom. "Patricia, please calm down. Let's discuss this rationally." Ma tried unsuccessfully to soothe her. "Calm down? Calm down? Your mother just caused me the single most humiliating experience of my entire life. There were at least 20 people in that store watching the saleswoman try the card over and over and over while it kept declining. I had to abandon everything at the counter and practically run out of there. I stood up from my bed. I smoothed out the wrinkles in my simple clothes. I took one more deep breath to steady myself and opened my bedroom door. I walked slowly down the short hallway to the living room where they were both standing. Patricia turned to stare at me with eyes absolutely burning with rage. Mark was sitting uncomfortably on the couch, unable to meet my gaze. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice as calm as possible. "Talk." Patricia took an aggressive step toward me. "You humiliated me. You made me look like a complete fool in front of dozens of people." "I didn't humiliate you, Patricia. You attempted to spend my money without my explicit permission. That's called theft, not family sharing." "Theft? We're family. Families share resources with each other. Families also don't steal from each other. Families ask permission. Families show basic respect. And you didn't ask me for a single thing. You simply took my card as if I didn't even exist." "Mom, just stop this right now," Mark finally interjected. "Patricia was only going to purchase some things we genuinely need. New furniture, a kitchen remodel, improvements to make this house better. $700,000 on furniture and renovations. And that seems reasonable to you, Mark. You have that money just sitting there earning basically nothing. You're not using it for anything productive. We work hard. We pay all the bills for this house. We support you financially. It's only fair that we should be able to use some of that money." Those words, "we support you," hit me like a physical blow, as if I were nothing but a burden, an obligation, a charity case they were generously helping out of the goodness of their hearts. You support ME. My voice came out louder than I'd intended. I give you my entire pension check every single month. $1,200 that you've never once returned or even acknowledged. I cook every single meal. I clean every single surface. I wash every piece of laundry. I iron every shirt. I do absolutely everything in this house without receiving a single cent in return. Exactly how is that you supporting me? That $1,200 barely covers your food costs, Patricia replied with undisguised disdain. Then let me leave. Let me purchase my own place and stop being such an unbearable burden to you both. I saw Mark and Patricia exchange a quick glance, a look I couldn't quite decipher in that moment, but which I would come to understand perfectly later. Mom, nobody said you were a burden. Stop being so overdramatic about everything. Mark said, though his voice carried zero conviction. You literally said I'm old and don't need money. You said I live here completely free. If that's not calling someone a burden, then please explain to me what is. Look, Helen. Patricia crossed her arms defensively across her chest. Let's be brutally honest here. You have absolutely nowhere else to go. You don't have any other children. You have no other family to speak of. Your friends are all in the exact same situation as you, or even worse off. What exactly are you going to do? Live completely alone in some depressing little apartment? Eat every meal alone? Die alone with nobody to care? Her words were like calculated slaps, each one designed specifically to hurt, to make me feel small and useless and completely out of viable options. I would rather be alone in peace than surrounded by people who make me constantly miserable. I replied, surprising myself with my own courage. Always so melodramatic. Nobody is making you miserable. We provide you with everything you could possibly need. But, of course, nothing is ever enough for you, is it? Patricia said with dripping sarcasm. You don't provide me with anything. I pay with my pension. I pay with my constant labor. I pay with my dignity. And this conversation is completely over. I'm not changing my mind about anything. I turned around and walked directly back to my bedroom. I locked the door behind me and leaned against it heavily, listening to them continue arguing in raised voices outside. Patricia was blaming Mark for being too weak with me. Mark was trying desperately to calm her down. Both of them were talking about me as if I were nothing more than a problem that needed to be solved. I sat down on my bed and picked up my phone again. There was only one person in the world I could call right now. My dear friend Regina. Helen? Is everything all right? It's almost 9 o'clock at night. Regina answered immediately, her voice filled with concern, and then I completely fell apart. I told her absolutely everything, from the conversation I'd overheard that morning to the confrontation that had just taken place. I cried on the phone harder than I'd cried in many years. Regina simply let me talk, let me pour everything out without interrupting even once. Helen, listen to me very carefully, she said when I'd finally run out of words. Tomorrow morning, you're going to pack a bag with your essentials and come straight to my house. You can stay here for as long as you need while you figure out your next steps. You absolutely cannot stay in that toxic house for one more day. It's literally killing your soul. Regina, I can't possibly impose on you like that. Your apartment is so small. I have a sofa bed in my living room that's infinitely more comfortable than staying in that house where nobody values you. Tomorrow morning, Helen, this isn't a request. It's an order from your oldest friend. I couldn't sleep at all that night. I lay on my narrow twin bed, staring up at the low ceiling of my tiny bedroom, replaying every single moment that had brought me to this point in my life. I remembered when I'd sold my apartment all those years ago. It had been small, certainly, but it was completely mine. 2 bedrooms, a living room, a functional kitchen, and a bathroom. I'd purchased it with so much effort and sacrifice when I was 42 years old. I'd paid installments faithfully for 15 long years. Every single room had been furnished little by little, each piece bought with careful planning and hard-earned money. But when Mark had married Patricia and told me they wanted a bigger house but didn't have nearly enough money for a down payment, I hadn't hesitated for even a moment. I'd sold my beloved apartment for $200,000 and given him every single penny. It's just a loan, Mom. I'll pay you back within 2 years, with interest. I absolutely promise you. His eyes had been shining with hope and gratitude that day. 2 years had turned into 5. 5 had become 10, then 15, and now 18 years had passed. The loan had gradually transformed into an unspoken favor. It had become you have a roof over your head and food in your stomach. That's worth way more than $200,000. As if my home, my personal achievement, my years of sacrifice were worth nothing more than room and board in someone else's house. When I'd first moved into their house, Patricia had shown me to my room, the smallest one in the entire house. It had literally been a walk-in closet that they'd hastily converted into a bedroom. It's a bit tight, I know, but it's just temporary, mother-in-law. Soon you'll probably want to have your own place again anyway, she'd said with a smile that never quite reached her cold eyes. Temporary. 18 long years of temporary. When dawn finally broke, I got up earlier than usual. I showered, dressed in my nicest clothes, and began quietly packing my belongings. I didn't actually have very many possessions. Simple, practical clothing. A few pairs of worn shoes. Old photographs in frames. Important documents. Everything I owned fit easily into 2 old suitcases. I prepared breakfast exactly as I did every morning. I left everything set out perfectly on the table. But this time, I didn't stay around to serve them. I went back to my room and simply waited. I heard Mark and Patricia wake up. I heard their footsteps moving around the house. I heard their low voices having a conversation. Neither one of them knocked on my door to check how I was doing, exactly as always. Mark left for work at precisely 7:30. Patricia left at 8 o'clock. The moment her car disappeared down the street, I grabbed both my suitcases and walked out the front door of that house. I left my set of keys on the small entry table. Right next to them, I placed a note I'd written during the long, sleepless night. Mark, I'm leaving. I can no longer live in a house where my only value is my bank account. Thank you for these 18 years, but I need to reclaim my dignity. When I'm settled in my new place, I'll send you my address. I love you, but I need to learn to love myself more. Mom. I called an Uber and waited on the sidewalk with my 2 suitcases. The next-door neighbor, Mr. Robert, was outside watering his front yard plants and noticed me standing there. Good morning, Mrs. Helen. Are you going on a trip somewhere? Something like that, Mr. Robert. Something very much like that. The car arrived within 5 minutes. The driver kindly helped me load the suitcases into the trunk. As we pulled away from the curb, I looked out the rear window at the house where I'd lived for 18 years. It was a beautiful house, large, well-maintained, impressive, but it had never, ever been my home. It had been my prison. Regina was waiting for me at her building's entrance when I arrived. She wrapped me in a hug so tight I could barely breathe. And within that embrace, I finally let out all the tears I'd been holding back for so long. You're here now. You're safe, she whispered gently, stroking my hair like a mother would. Regina's apartment was genuinely small, living room, bedroom, kitchen, and bathroom, but it was spotlessly clean, thoughtfully organized, and most importantly, it was absolutely filled with peace. There was no tension hanging in the air, no judgmental looks, no cruel words waiting around every corner to hurt me. The sofa bed is all yours for as long as you need it. It's not luxury accommodations, but it's surprisingly comfortable. And this home is your home for however long you want to stay, Regina said warmly as she showed me where I could put my things. We spent the entire morning getting me organized. Regina cleared out space in her closet for my clothes. She showed me where everything was in the kitchen. She made me feel genuinely welcome in 1,000 small but deeply significant ways. Around noon, my cell phone started ringing insistently. It was Mark calling. I didn't answer. He called again and again. On the 10th attempt, he finally left a voicemail. Mom, where are you? I came home for lunch and you're not here. I saw your note. Please call me back. I'm really worried. Worried? How interesting that he was suddenly worried now. Regina looked at me with a question in her eyes. Are you going to answer him? Not yet. I need to think clearly first. I need to know exactly what I'm going to do before I have that conversation. I turned off my phone completely. I needed silence, peace, and time to process everything that had happened and decide my next steps carefully. In the afternoon, Regina and I sat together on her small balcony with cups of coffee. From there, we could see the city moving and flowing below us, life happening all around. You know what hurts the most, Regina? I said after a long, contemplative silence. It's not the money they tried to steal. It's not even the blatant disrespect. What hurts most is realizing that I spent 18 entire years desperately trying to earn back my son's love. And now I finally see that his love was always conditional, based entirely on what I could give him. Regina took my hand in Hayes, wrinkled hands very much like mine, marked clearly by the years, but still strong and reassuringly warm. Helen, you didn't spend 18 years trying to earn his love. You gave 18 years of completely unconditional love. That's profoundly different. The problem isn't you. The problem is that Mark and that woman never learned how to value what they had. But I'm his mother. Mothers are supposed to sacrifice for their children. Mothers love their children no matter what. Yes, absolutely. But children must also love their mothers. Love isn't a one-way street. Helen. And sacrifice has very real limits. When sacrifice starts killing your soul, it's not love anymore. It becomes self-destruction. She was absolutely right, as she always was. Regina had been my closest friend since we'd worked together in a textile factory over 40 years ago. She knew me better than anyone else in the world. Now you need to start thinking about yourself. About what Helen wants. About what Helen needs to finally be happy, Regina continued firmly. What do you want? I want my own apartment. I want my own space where nobody makes me feel like I'm constantly in the way. Where I can have my morning coffee without feeling like I'm stealing someone else's electricity. Where I can simply exist without apology. Then that's exactly what we're going to find. Tomorrow we start apartment hunting. That night, I slept on Regina's sofa bed. It was honestly the best night's sleep I'd had in years. There was no tension. No fear of hearing angry footsteps or irritated voices at any moment. There was only blessed peace. On Saturday morning, I woke up without an alarm clock. It was almost 9 o'clock when I finally opened my eyes. The last time I'd slept that late I honestly couldn't even remember. Regina was already in the kitchen making fresh coffee. The rich aroma brought me a sense of warmth and comfort I hadn't felt in far too long. Good morning. Hot coffee and perfectly grilled toast. Today is the day we find your new home, she announced with a brilliant smile. We had coffee together, talking about absolutely everything and nothing at all. No pressure, no complaints, no walking on eggshells. Just two old friends sharing a peaceful moment together. Afterward, we got ready and went out. Regina had scheduled 4 different apartments for us to view that day, all carefully selected to be within my budget. The first one was far too dark, tiny windows that barely let in any natural light. The second was in a half-abandoned building that smelled disturbingly like mold and dampness. The third was actually perfect in many ways, but it was on the 5th floor of a building with no elevator, and my increasingly painful knees simply couldn't handle climbing all those stairs multiple times every single day. But the 4th apartment, the 4th one, absolutely stole my heart the instant I walked through the door. It was on the 3rd floor of a well-maintained building with a working elevator. It had a living room with a large window that overlooked a beautiful section of the park across the street, a functional kitchenette, a spacious bedroom with good closet space, a clean, updated bathroom. It wasn't enormous, approximately 650 square feet total, but it was incredibly cozy, wonderfully bright, and it had genuinely good energy emanating from every corner. How much are they asking for it? I asked the real estate agent who was showing us the property. $300,000. That price includes one designated parking space and a storage unit in the basement. The building maintenance fee is $500 monthly. $300,000. I could pay completely in cash and still have $400,000 remaining to live comfortably, handle any emergencies that might arise, and have genuine peace of mind for whatever years I had left. Could I possibly walk through it one more time? I moved slowly through each room again, this time actively imagining my life unfolding here. My simple twin bed in that sunny bedroom. My few clothes hanging in that built-in closet. My cherished photographs decorating these empty walls. I imagined making my morning coffee in that compact kitchen, sitting peacefully near that window to read my books, sleeping soundly through the night without fear. I could see my entire future in those bare walls, and that future looked genuinely bright. I want it. I'm going to buy it, I stated with a firmness that surprised even me. The agent smiled broadly. Excellent decision, Mrs. Helen. This apartment truly has wonderful energy. The previous owner lived here very happily for 15 years. She only moved out because her daughter relocated to another state, and she wanted to be closer to her grandchildren. We discussed all the necessary paperwork and documentation requirements. He gave me the contact information for a trusted lawyer who could handle all the complex legal aspects. Everything was falling into place. We left the apartment, and Regina practically shouted with pure excitement right there on the public street. You did it. You're actually going to have your own home. We spun around together on the sidewalk like two giddy schoolgirls. People walking past us stared curiously. Some smiled warmly, clearly touched by our obvious joy. An elderly lady stopped walking and asked kindly, "What are you two celebrating so enthusiastically?" "I just bought my very first apartment," I said with unmistakable pride radiating from my voice. "How absolutely wonderful. Congratulations, dear. It's never too late to make our dreams come true." We returned to Regina's apartment feeling euphoric, already making detailed plans for decorating, discussing what furniture I'd need to purchase to make the space truly mine. It was in the midst of that happiness that I finally decided to turn my phone back on. I had accumulated 47 missed calls from Mark, 23 from Patricia, and over 60 text messages waiting. The first messages had been worried. "Mom, where are you? Please answer. We're desperate here. At least let us know you're okay." But the tone had changed dramatically as time went on. "Mom, this is absolutely ridiculous. Stop this childish drama. We need to resolve the situation like adults." And the most recent ones were almost threatening. "If you don't answer immediately, I'm calling the police. This is basically abandonment." Regina read the messages over my shoulder and snorted indignantly. "Abandonment? As if you abandoned a helpless child. You're 65 years old. You're an independent adult woman who can make her own decisions." I need to respond to him, but through text message. I don't want to hear his voice just yet. I sat down on the couch and composed a long, carefully worded message, choosing each word with great deliberation. "Mark, I'm perfectly fine. I'm in a safe place with a trusted friend. I needed to leave that house to preserve my mental health and self-respect. For 18 years, I lived feeling like an unwanted burden, and what happened was absolutely the last straw. I've purchased my own apartment. I'll be moving in next week. This isn't meant as punishment for you. It's a decision of self-respect and self-preservation. When I'm completely settled, I'll send you my new address. I love you, but I desperately need to love myself more. Mom." I pressed send before I could second-guess myself. I watched as the 2 check marks appeared indicating the message was delivered. Then they turned blue, showing he'd read it. The 3 dots appeared, indicating he was typing a response. They disappeared, appeared again, disappeared. This happened several times. Finally, his reply came through. "Mom, this is completely insane. You can't just buy an apartment on impulse like this. Who's going to take care of you? Who's going to help you if you get sick or have an emergency? And Patricia is extremely upset right now. She says you owe her a sincere apology for the humiliation at the mall. We need you to come back home so we can discuss this like mature adults." I read the message 3 times carefully. No apology from him whatsoever. No acknowledgement of what they'd done wrong. Just more manipulation. More attempt to make me feel guilty for protecting myself. "Are you going to respond?" Regina asked gently. "Yes, I am." I wrote a short, crystal-clear reply. "Mark, I'm 65 years old, not 9 to 5. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself, and I absolutely do not owe Patricia any apology whatsoever. She attempted to spend $700,000 of MY money without MY permission. If anyone owes anyone an apology, it's you two who owe me one. We'll talk when I'm emotionally ready. Mom." After sending it, I turned the phone off again. I didn't want to read any more manipulation attempts or guilt trips. Sunday turned out to be one of the most peaceful days I'd experienced in many years. Regina and I went to church in the morning, something I hadn't been able to do regularly in years because Sundays were when Patricia hosted her elaborate family lunches, and I was expected to cook for everyone. Afterward, we walked leisurely through the weekend flea market, browsing for second-hand furniture treasures. I found a beautiful solid wood dining table for only $150. The seller even helped me load it into a taxi. I also discovered a complete set of quality pans in excellent condition for $80, some nice plates and glasses, and fresh bath towels. Regina absolutely insisted on buying me a brand new set of bed sheets as a housewarming gift. So you can start your new life with completely new sheets that have no history attached to them, she explained as she paid. I couldn't hold back tears of profound gratitude, emotion, and overwhelming relief. We stored everything carefully in the storage unit at Regina's building, waiting patiently for the day I could finally move into my new apartment. On Monday morning, I went to the office of the lawyer the real estate agent had recommended. His name was Mr. Matthew, a man in his mid-50s who appeared serious but genuinely kind. He reviewed all my documents meticulously, verified the apartment's complete legal status, and patiently explained every single step of the purchase process. Mrs. Helen, everything is perfectly in order. The apartment has absolutely no outstanding debts and no liens against it. We can finalize the purchase next Friday. Are you absolutely certain you want to pay entirely in cash? You could pursue financing if you prefer not to use quite so much of your capital all at once. No, I want to pay completely in cash. I want it to be entirely mine with no debts whatsoever and no monthly payments hanging over me. I've waited my entire